Hey everybody. I wanted to make a quick video talking about some of the things that I wish I had known about night vision much earlier than I found out about it, because some of these things are actually really helpful. And I'm going to start with the one that I think is the most helpful, which are the focus stop rings. I'd heard of focus stop rings before, but I thought that they were something that you had to buy, like they were an accessory or something, and I never really looked into them. But one of the most frustrating things that I found when actually using um, my night vision goggles is switching between a relatively close focus and a focus that's kind of like midway. Um, like if I wanted to, if I'm walking around or something and I want to see the branches that are close to me, like I'm walking through the woods, and I want to see the branches that are close to me. I want to be able to look down and make sure I'm not about to trip over a log, and I want all that to be in focus. I'm gonna focus out a little bit. But then when I want to look up and see like an infinite focus, um, I have to very carefully find where the infinite focus is at. And I found myself constantly, like, it was sort of like an OCD thing where I wanted it to be at the exact perfect infinite focus, which is pretty hard to do because if you've ever messed with night vision goggles or not necessarily goggles, this applies to PVS 14s and other binoculars too. Um, the adjustments on the objective lens are uh, very fast, very dramatic. So it's very easy if you're trying to get your focus exactly where you want it to overshoot it. Um, but that's where the focus stop rings come in. This is my set. I've set my focus stop rings on this set. Um, so if I want to focus out so that I can see um, things that are about uh, 5 feet away from me and have that in focus, all I have to do is it takes about that much. And then if I want to go to an infinite focus, bam. And the focus stop rings stop it right where the infinite focus is. And I had to set that myself. It didn't come that way. Um, but it's a set it and forget it sort of deal. I don't really see why you would ever need to focus past the focus stop ring. Um, but yeah, I had a pair of DTNVGs before I had these DTNVSs, and those had focus stop rings on them too. And I dealt with all that frustration with constantly overshooting where my infinite focus was, um, when I could have just set my focus stop rings and just so easy, bam, infinite focus. And the way you do that, the way you set that, is like pretty much every set that I know of is going to have a focus stop ring already integrated into it. Um, you want to make sure that your set screw is loosened so that you're not screwing up your threads when you're spinning this guy. And you go outside in the dark, obviously. You can't do this with pinhole caps on because pinhole caps make everything in focus. Um, and you simply look through your nods at something as far away as possible, and then you dial it down to where it's perfectly in focus. And then this guy, you unscrew until it's butting up against it. Then you tighten your set screw, and from that point forward, bam, infinite focus. Just like that. It's really that easy. And if you're like me and a little bit OCD with how you focus your objective lenses, that will save you a ton of time. It's so convenient to be able to just pop, infinite. Uh, Number two, this one isn't like super helpful, but it is a neat trick. A lot of people don't know that these guys right here are not necessary at all. You just take them right off. And if you look at the eyepieces now, you can see how much bigger of a viewing window that gives you. The only purpose for these things are for popping in demist shields or using the rubber eye cups. And they also have a few other purposes, like some point of view recorders use these things to mount to. And I would say the biggest reason to not remove these guys is because it actually gives you a sort of a standoff that protects your eyepiece right there. As you can see, the glass is a lot less protected when you remove these guys. But if you don't care about that and you just want to have a bigger viewing window, you can take that off with no issues. That's not really a tip, I guess, just a little tidbit of information. It's up to you whether or not you want to make your eyepiece glass more vulnerable. Now for another actual tip. This pair came delivered just like my pair came delivered, and my pair of DTNVGs from TNVC before that. The diopters were zeroed on my original pair, they were zeroed at like -4 on each. As you can see on this one, I've set the zeros to actually be on 0. But on this set, you can see the 0, and these diopters are like currently zeroed. So if you don't need corrective lenses, or you need corrective lenses but you're wearing them, right now if you were to look through these, you wouldn't have to mess with the diopters. The diopters are where they need to be. So for whatever reason, when they make these, I don't know if the manufacturers are just lazy or what, but this one they did correctly. They put it to where the zeroed part of the diopter is actually on 0, but on this one they set it to -2 for some reason. And you can actually change that yourself. There's a little snap ring right here. You just need a little pointy object. Pop it in one of these holes on this snap ring. You just pull back and lift up a little bit. It might be easier to come. Yeah. Once it's started, you just sort of run it around. Now that that snap ring is off, when you turn the diopter, instead of staying flush like this one is, it's actually going to come away from the piece. So what I need to do is, I can see that I need this dot to be right here. So I'm going to try and remember where that spot is, just with my thumb. I'm going to loosen the eyepiece, bring this closer to the camera so you guys can see. Oh, going the wrong way. You can see how that just backs the diopter off, and now this guy can spin freely. So I'm going to set that back down right there. Screw the diopter adjustment back down, and right here you want to make sure that the little nub is going to fall into one of those holes. So if I can find the nub, There. Except I think I went the wrong way with it. I think it'll be better if I go to the next there. Now I'm going to tighten the eyepiece back. The snap ring goes back on really easily, or C-clip or whatever you call these guys. You just sort of roll it around just like that. And now right there, if I put the caps on and look through these, the diopter should be at least fairly close to being at 0. And I'm going to look at through these. I'm not going to bother moving the camera for this, but yeah. So what I did, the best way to check to see where your diopters need to be is frankly to do it in a lit room with pinhole caps so that you know that your focus is perfect. And then just turn the diopters back and forth, sort of like you're getting an eye exam. If you've never gotten one, then, well, I don't know what to tell you there. You just sort of spin it back and forth until you get the clearest image possible without straining your eyeball to focus it at all. So if I look through these and I spin the diopter back and forth, I just go back and forth until I find the spot where it's the clearest without having to strain my eye to, you can see it's a little bit off, so it might need a little bit more fine tuning, but yeah, all you got to make sure is when you're doing this is to make sure to, when you put it back on, get that little nub right there lined up with one of these holes. But what that does is, instead of having to remember, okay, the 0 for my diopter over here is on 0, and the 0 for it over here is at -2, you just know it's 0 and 0, which I think is way easier to remember.